is identifying that state of peak performance where you're firing on all cylinders. And we've all been there, right? Where we're just like in that zone, and we're in the state of flow, and everything is going right. And we've also been on the, on the bottom end of that. But if you're able to control your mindset and your thinking to level up in a consistent and sustainable way, then all the activities that align with that type of thinking just come naturally, right? And you start getting tremendous results. But it starts on the inside. Before you get a change on the outside, you got to change the way you think on the inside. And so, one of the things from the book was talking about inputs, outputs, and results, right? So that your dad made famous. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Dad said this, your input determines your outlook determines your output, and your output determines your outcome. So the number one lesson that I learned from dad was we got to control our input.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book, Choose to Win, the things that we talk about that create a balanced success, there's 7 areas: mental, spiritual, physical, family, financial, personal, and career. And I put mental first. I put it ahead of spiritual and ahead of physical. Not that I'm going to argue with somebody if they want to start with those,
Mm-hmm.
but this is what I believe. We have to think about what input we want that's going to get us to where we want to go. So that's the first choice. And so then we cheat, right? So if, okay, this is who I want to become, this is what I want to accomplish. It all starts with our character qualities, our spiritual qualities, which are character and integrity and love and faith and all those different things. So I choose the input that builds myself up as an individual capable of making good decisions. Our character and integrity is really the filter through which we make the tough decisions. And the better that filter is, the more we nurture that filter, the better decisions we're going to make along the way. But it starts with taking control of our mind and choosing to think through it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything, it's like the fuel that then drives everything else. One of the things I hear from a lot of folks is um, they have difficulty in, let's say, removing negative people from their life, right? Because a lot of those sometimes negative people are family members, are close friends that, it's tough to then, how do you start balancing that? Because that's part of the input. What advice could you give to them in terms of managing who you spend time with, right? Because who you spend time with is who you become, similar to, right? And if we're trying to control inputs, how do we handle these types of situations?
Boy, this is a tough one. And there's really, there's two choices, two types of choices, I should say. Some of the people that we spend time with is totally optional. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
they might be friends or quote friends or people we've known a long time, extended family that, we have really the choice to get with them or not get with them. That's all, we have an option. And so what do? Uh, we create we create a standard, and the standard is real simple. Is this relationship, is it mutually beneficial? Are they helping me and am I helping them?
Hmm.
And so sometimes it's pretty easy. They don't take any of my thoughts seriously, and they just dump on me. Well,
Hmm.
we can cut that one out right away. And then there are the relationships that aren't optional, right? It's the in-laws, it's the people that we're going to see on a regular basis. And so there's two kinds of negative input that I want to talk about. There's more than that, but there's two that I want to talk about now. Uh, One type of negative input is associated with a hurt, right, or a wound. And sometimes in our family relationships, either intentionally or unintentionally, those who are close to us are the ones who've hurt us the most. And because of that, when they say something that recalls that thing, we have that big emotional response.
Right.
and studying mindset, and I'm a big fan of Dr. Carolyn Leaf. One of the things we got to do is we got to get detached from them. So how do you do that? Well, this is hard, but you forgive them,
Yeah.
not for their benefit, but for
For
your,
yours. Yeah.
right? And so when you forgive someone, that takes away the power of that. And then you go in and you say, what did I learn from that relationship? And then this is what I tell people, and I'll ask everybody who's listening: have you ever been wrongly attacked or accused, or somebody's just been hard on you? You don't even know where it comes from. It could be a stranger, it could be a coworker or a friend or somebody who's really close, and they just come at you, and you're like, where'd that come from? So
Yeah.
here's my mental thought: would a secure person do that? And the
That's
answer
right.
is no,
That's right.
right? They just wouldn't. And so immediately my attitude shifts to, oh, they're insecure. Well, I have a different, it's the problems with them. It has nothing to do with me.
Right. Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
that allows me to keep an even keel. And, at that point, they're not emotionally tapped in. And so I'm like, hey, you know what? There's nothing I can do about this.
Hmm.
What do you think about this? And if it continues, I just remove myself from that conversation. I'm like, I wish I could help you. And right now on social media, we see this all the time, right? Somebody posts a comment or repost a meme or something, and then they just get hammered. And you know, it probably doesn't have anything to do with you,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And to your dad's point, what is this leading you towards, right? Is it leading you towards something good, something positive, constructive, or not? And if it's not, then choose to either eliminate it or move away from it and focus on other things, right? Because we have to really be protective about what information we're letting in.
Now, my sister Julie, she talks about it in her book, Growing Up Ziglar, and she talked about in her marriage, she was going to my mom and saying some negative things about her husband, right? And after
Wow.
the third time, mom looked at my sister and said, you know what? Unless you take action and do some of the things that I've suggested, we just can't have any more discussions about that. Right.
Wow.
Now that's a pretty harsh line, but the reality is, you probably shouldn't be talking to your inner family about a marriage challenge in the first
Correct.
place, right?
Correct.
Because that, but we can use that same principle with other people who come in and drain over and over again, and we say, hey, you know what? Why don't you go see a coach? Why don't you go see a counselor? Why don't you talk to your supervisor? And then they
Mhm.
bring it to you again and they say, blah, 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 blah. Can you believe what happened? Did you talk to any? No. I'm sorry, we can't talk about it anymore
Yeah.
because I can't help you unless you're willing to take some action.
Right. Right.
Right. And so that's part of it. So, and then the other question is, who do we have the most obligation to? It's ourselves, it's our spouse, it's our
Hmm.
kids. And at that point, is the relationship that you have and that negative thing that's coming in, is it causing any hindrance or holding you back in your own growth and development and the relationships that mean the most to you? And if it is, you got to look hard at that. You got to draw a boundary.